welcome everybody to this panel discussion on addressing operational weaknesses in business process. So let me introduce our guest today, Rob Neumann from Coreshop. Rob, if you want to say hello.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you.
We have also Kankana from Evoke.
Hello, everyone. Thanks.
Hello, Kankana. Great. And Mike from Bonitasoft.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Carol, Rob, Kankana. Thanks for having us.
So our three guests will address different questions during this webinar, and I will just introduce a bit the context and what's happening. So we have like setting the scene before we move to our panel. So as you know, last year a lot of firms before the COVID crisis, they focused their automation effort on transformation and growth. But with the COVID, they had to they uncovered basically weaknesses, and they saw that they had neglected back office processes. And with all this very fast crisis, they had to tackle these weaknesses and make a priority of fixing them, right? So as a consequence, what we see is that CIOs have to revamp their automation roadmap and address future systemic risk, and they need their firm to be more resilient, agile, and scalable. And I think with all this in mind, we will address today with the panel what are the key questions you can ask yourself evolving into this crisis period, and how you can make sure that your automation project will be a success. So let's start with the first question, which is why do companies now need to start optimizing and automating their business process? And I will start to ask you, Kankana, about this first question.
Sure. Yeah, so this recent COVID-19 situation, I think, is the biggest disruptor of business that we have seen in the last 50 years. And we should definitely never let a business crisis go to waste. So when this crisis imposed a no-touch and a remote working environment, the businesses who were lagging behind had to adapt their mindset and step up quickly to automate their business processes. Now, automation is nothing new. It had been there for quite some time now. It's just that the technology landscape has matured enough to jumpstart and support the process automations easily. Let me give you a few examples. For example, if a business wants to have a competitive edge in order to take their product to market, they need to have automation in the development system. If a business which is strongly governed by compliance and regulation, they need automation so that whenever the rules change, the documents are automatically updated for future audits. During this COVID situation, the drug discovery process has to be much faster and also accurate, and all while complying to all the safety measures. Let's assume that there is a seasonal workload which comes up like in Christmas or something. So quick scaling up of workers would be a nightmare in that case, right? So business have to resort to automating their workflows so that they can handle such business needs. In COVID crisis, even in order to keep the lights on, the companies had to fix their long pending process automation. So I think that's how, and that's the reason why companies have to step up.
And Rob, I think you have a set of questions that you use to address this matter.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. It's my pleasure to be here. I think Kankana is 100% correct. This is the largest disruption, and it is a disruption that has revealed areas that haven't been focused on, or areas of real weakness. Now more than ever, process management is critical. And we know now, the truth is, people may never go back to their offices. People will probably be in a hybrid model at best. A number of processes and functions don't need to be in an office. The savings and the opportunity here in the United States to work from home is well appreciated. And therefore, we need to really look at process management, accountability, and outcomes in order to manage that in a distributed manner. So my questions are, in these new areas, do you have a documented process? Can you track, monitor, and improve those processes while you're not in the offices? And have your services gotten better right now than they were previously? If you've answered no to any of these three questions, you should definitely be looking at business process management and use BPM tools to really simulate scenarios and ideas before you go try to implement things. And implement things in phases. In my opinion, that's always a successful way rather than trying to do everything all at once.
Okay, and Michael, I think you have like a bit of a stronger view on the risks not tackling this problem.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Yeah, I personally believe that it's a question of survival. We're seeing it right now, not only in the U.S. but at a global level. With the periods of lockdowns, with company, of course, shutting down offices, and not only smaller organizations, but larger organizations also have had to have been facing reducing their workforce. So the biggest challenge is, how do we deliver the same service with fewer resources and more complexity, with working from several departments that cannot, on a daily basis talk with one another, with a trend that we're going to see also more and more cloud applications evolve and grow with time. So how do you manage to build up manual processes, paper-based processes with cloud operations and people outside of the office? So the heterogeneous internal and external systems, everything around that, to give you a few examples of use cases that could be strongly impacted, are management escalations for customer services around call centers, or about activating and operating a new service, offering a new subscription to your customers. Of course, these are examples are directly customer related, but customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction is also essential. And last but not the least, I believe that even with BPM or process automation, governance is going to be a key criteria as well.
Okay, and Rob, what do you think is this change strategy that a company needs to address?
I think it depends on their level of maturity. So I think strategy always needs to be business first, technology supporting that strategy. And it depends on level of maturity, and needs may exist at different levels across an organization, or functionally or department wise. I think a lot of the differences between where companies have focused is becoming quite understood. So first, secure your business. As Michael said, it's a matter of survival. So are there key people missing? Have you been able to fill the tribal knowledge? Have you been able to make sure that you understand where things are? Process mapping, documenting, and process improvement. It starts with people first. The second is someone in a middle maturity area. Look closely at your current performance versus past performance. There's a lot of area for people making exceptions right now, but that isn't going to continue. So improve your analytics. Look for trends, changes, what's happening in the last 6 months that hasn't happened before, right? A disruption like COVID is an opportunity to fix those things. Apply analytics and BI with a good Six Sigma team to analyze and improve your business. The last is actually one of our customers has really thrived. They have the data and know-how where their processes are solid, and this is actually an area where they're looking to really transform how they're doing it. They're redesigning processes to take advantage of hyper process managers, RPA, and using BPM to simulate new paths and reduce cycle time and remove bureaucracy, which is always standing in the way of process improvement.
Yeah. And Kankana, I think you have examples also on these type of processes or what they can fix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Rob summarized it really well. I just want to add that change strategy is nothing but it's a strategy for transformation, which we can apply in top 3 areas in every business. One, and topmost, is customer experience, right? Every business cares for it. Second is simplifying your complex systems so that they connect well. For example, use more of microservices, use cloud-based systems so that your system can be seamlessly integrated. And also analyzing the data that comes out of the business. Utilize more powerful analytics platform, and then apply ML algorithms so that you can make sense of that business data. So if you transform all these 3 areas, automatically, you'll have a very strong roadmap for your business.
And Kankana, how do you think companies should tackle the subject?
Right. So when you're bringing out a change, means that it will affect some end users, right? So let's first identify some of the affected users. Either they will be your consumers, or they will be your internal users like marketing department, sales department, or any other department. So make sure that they are a part of the plan, right? Communicate with them in a charter so that they get some clarity. For example, let's assume they were using Excel sheet for doing some of their job. So you have to explain that the new change will remove the pain point of using and updating Excel sheets. And once you make them the part of your journey, then bringing the change will be much easier. The uniqueness of COVID situation is that it's established that you have to adapt very quickly. You have to be extremely resourceful. And when this crisis hit us, there was no playbook, absolutely no playbook with us, but we learned and we did it in a very iterative way. So COVID has definitely made sure that digitization is currently a business strategy for every business. The IT decision makers have to make decisions very quick. They have to have a solid roadmap, should have a measurable ROI, and should have a sustainable technology stack or technology platforms with them in order to survive the growing market demands. So that's how I think companies are tackling and would be tackling change.
Okay. Yeah. And Mike, how much do you think the office of the CIO needs to be involved and made strategic in that matter?
I believe yes, he has to be involved more than ever. Of course, the CIO has always had, an important role in supporting the technologies chosen by their teams. But right now, I think taking a step back and looking at the awareness of the criticality and importance of the overall situation, there has to be a strategic sponsorship, which I believe should be held by the CIO, but also with all the members of the management committee. But management committee, I mean all the other directors of their business units, both business and technical, should be involved and should also follow the evolution and the choice of the technology, because we tend, and customers or companies in general tend to focus a lot on the technology, but how is that technology going to be utilized? How easy are you going to be able to integrate that technology, that platform with existing systems? So the overall compatibility with the systems is key, sponsorship as well, and also assigning within the CIO team a project manager to be a sponsor to coordinate the needs of both IT and business teams is going to be valuable.
And I think, Rob, you speak also about these cross-functional teams. Can you be a bit specific on this?
Yeah, our team often works with industries that are perhaps lagging a little bit, and what we're finding is that explaining to them, starting with business process in mind, is really helpful. We've gotten a lot of folks approaching us because they're finding that things aren't working. So I wanted to pick up on what Kankana said, which is get everything into the cloud. We've encountered a number of companies that still rely on on-prem systems. If you're sending people home, the cloud is here and it works extremely well. You need to embrace it. So start with a solid cross-functional team. that includes all your major business functions to examine your processes. Get input, buy-in from your associates. Everyone knows and accepts change is going to happen. So this is an opportunity to really use that in your change management process. Embrace it, over communicate it. So let me share with you a small tech services client that we helped with. Kankana brought up a lot of processes sometimes are by either SneakerNet, email, Excel processes, data sheets. Well, the client reduced staff. People had to take a small reduction in pay in order for them to stay in COVID, right? And so the fact is the business needed to rethink how is it going to deliver for its customers effectively with fewer people. So the teams responded by creating essentially a hybrid position that had more visibility to each deliverable along their value chain. Now, this was temporary. This position was able to route requests, projects faster because it had a multidisciplinary approach where it had been all functional. Once done, we were able to come in, codify that, standardize it, and put in bots and remove back that position. Sometimes there are interim steps. It eventually reduced work and improved total turnaround to where they're able to produce the same amount of work with significantly less people.
Okay, interesting example. Now moving to we spoke about strategy and why to start, but let's focus on technologies because we hear so much about all these technologies that can help with the digital transformation. But Mike, I think you can explain a bit more to our audience what we have in mind around
Sure.
this.
And that is a broad topic, so I'm going to try to make it as more synthetic as I can, because like you said, there's a lot of technologies and all have different purposes and are needed and can coexist with one another. So the first that that we know at Bonitasoft is the traditionally BPM, business process management, also called by Forrester and Gartner DPA as of today, digital process automation. You've also companies have also in the past few years started to implement it quite actively RPA, robotic process automation. So robotic process automation in comparison with BPM is to be able to automate certain repetitive human tasks and replace it by a bot. So typically by a bot, a computer, automated task that we know is going to replace the mouse on a computer. Where BPM comes in place with RPA is it can complement. Usually the RPA automates a piece of a process, but does not have the end-to-end workflow from where does it start? Usually from a person, a human, to a system, and also ending maybe at a human level as well. So the BPM can complement the RPA from that extent, and other technologies that are not purely in the process automation space are API management, which is typically an orchestration of services. So these are also hub and key in orchestrating APIs, which is, as of today, the most easy and easiest way to connect within external systems and integrating systems with one another.
Okay, and the BPM is really orchestrating legacy systems and microservices and all, and playing this role, right? Central role into the automation.
Combining the automated, computer task with human task as well.
Yeah, and avoiding what we hear on the market, which is RPA island of automation, right? Avoiding that just little bricks are automated and nothing talks one to another. With the BPM, you have this whole story of continuous improvement of the process and continuous visibility also on the process. Rob, what do you see with when you go to clients on your sites?
Sure. We're looking at connecting business process management to line services right now, like customer service in particular, but using data management to bring together all the information necessary to handle what our clients need. So let me give you an example. Using RPA, PIMS, CSMs, right? Bringing in product information management, customer service management all together allows better information flow using BPM to get it across all your different functions. So one example, we have a very large client that manages its e-commerce platform and its product development using product information management. This provides richer content, richer product inventory, image management, and therefore BPM is managing all of the workflows, approvals, upload, changes to its live, most customer-facing information systems, and therefore its customers, answering these questions. It's then also used to manage product development because it has all of that information, and they can model and see how this is going to flow through their system as it's developed. So the client realized more complete information, it's more accurate information, which gave a boost to closing business on an e-commerce site. Another example is customer service management. During COVID, right, with everyone at home, we're now in the midst of really implementing a major upgrade to business processes associated with customer service. This includes, like Michael mentioned, exceptions, approvals, and management using the current data in the CSM, but speeding up that decision making with AI bots and making your customers happy because they're able to get decisions faster.
Okay. Kankana, what type of project does Evoke tackles?
Right. So Evoke Technologies is an IT services company. So we augment platforms, let's assume platforms like Bonitasoft and other platforms, with our technology services, right? So we provide solution that solves a business problem. And I agree with Mike that there is a lot of technology out there and it's growing. But what we have seen is we can break it up into two major streams. One is the application development stream, which is cloud-based, web and mobile-based application. And the other part is the automation stream, which includes BPM, RPA, analytics, AI. And all these things can coexist, right? Like Carol, you were saying that you can't separate BPM from RPA, right? It's at the end of the day to bring the solution. These two needs to coexist and work together to provide a solution. So to add to Rob's point, I think when he was talking about an example of his client, right? So when a CIO is looking for process automation, he has to look for solid featured platforms which can remove redundancies in his process, who can remove the repetitions and also remove the human errors so that productivity increases. So such BPM platforms, when it is well complemented with RPA and AI, those are the things that should be prioritized and can work hand in hand with other technologies.
Okay, thank you, Kankana. And if we, Rob, if we look at a company, there are so many processes there, very critical one, core processes, and then some that are more transversal. So what is your advice of which process to favor to start with?
Right. I think a lot of companies are struggling to keep their brand promise, right? So you've established a brand, you have a number of challenges. So what we see and what we recommend focusing on is that you work your customer facing processes first. Everything follows from the customer. If you're not satisfying your customer, you don't have a business. So this includes all your processes and services, including parts, mechanics services, customer communications, telephone and chat centers, and then making sure that you're able to get the decision-making process while we're all spread out all over the country, your city, whatever, exception approvals and standardizing your management decisions. Typically, right, you might be able to get a management decision quickly. It's harder now. So with AI bots, and finally, we actually had one of our team members write a paper on hyper automation, right? So anything that manages that customer process, getting things from the supply chain all the way to revenue, is the process you need to look at, but make sure that you are delivering to your customer.
Yeah, I think at Bonitasoft we are aligned with this. That you need to first start with this core process. Mike, I think you have some example of what our customers are doing.
Yeah, and exactly. I don't think we should, companies should be afraid to start with a rather complex process. It doesn't mean start big, but a process that is visible enough internally and externally to demonstrate that there's going to be an ROI and that
Yeah.
they're solving recurrent pain. And like Rob said, recurrent pain that are visible to your customers, and then they're visible to your employees. So just to give you a few examples, in the banking industry, client onboarding processes, as for any type of loan requests or funding, is often cross departments and cross departments between historically the physical offices that's going to be delegated with virtual offices now. So how do you manage that? So cross department is key. For finance, especially looking at companies, we have all been struggling also in being able to commit to what revenue companies are going to make in 2020, what revenue are going to make in 2021. And part of that is the invoicing and the payment that we receive from a customer. So customer invoicing is a great asset and example, also fairly appreciated by your organization, to say, okay, how can we manage that in a most efficient way and be able to anticipate the risks of 2021? Because we had some thoughts at the beginning of the year, and maybe these hypotheses were valid or invalid. So look at the trends and try to anticipate as much as possible. And last but not least, another very useful process to start with is everything around employee HR onboarding and management as an employee in the company, to make sure that you're well integrated and well followed and tracked. And one of that as well is we've seen in the educational sector, universities drastically transforming the way that they deliver classes. So everything is virtual. So also students onboarding, student management in university and education is a perfect example today that we've been seeing in the last few months.
Okay. And Rob, I would ask, I think, the question to you. So how do you ensure that the first project is really not just the one-off, but is really the beginning of a real transformation? Because we don't think it's enough to tackle one project, right? Transformation is the matter of doing more.
Mm-hmm. Well, Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind. So I would say set audacious goals. Go ahead and really think big. Tackle large, aggressive thought processes on how you're going to change the organization, right? So, for example, getting customer exceptions or approvals down to 1 hour, not 24 or 48 hours. Eliminating 2 layers of approvals by implementing AI-based decision making. Let it really begin to change how you are thinking about how you do things, right? Another area in banking, right? Change that loan approval process down to, from 30 days or 2 weeks, get it down to a few days. Set these goals and get innovative about them. One of the strongest methods is to simulate these processes. This is one of the real strengths of BPM, is rather than going ahead and making these assumptions that things will work, you have the ability to simulate, think about, scenario test, and really find out, will your ideas work? And lots of ideas are good. Iterate it, and then pull these ideas from your team, and then use these simulations to get feedback faster so that you decide once and you decide well, as opposed to try, fail. Not a good way to go.
And Kankana, another advice on this subject?
Right. So yeah, I just want to compliment Rob on this, that definitely, constantly failing and trying is not a good strategy. And that's why, to ensure a quick win, it should be a low hanging fruit, and which can be, quickly implemented. But at the same time, it should establish a significant foundational layer for all the future transformations, right? And that's how you make sure that you're not rolling into constantly into trial and error way. Now, we are in business for almost 17 years now into IT services, and we've also seen certain tracks of digital transformation fail, right? Sometimes, and mostly because people take up complex, long-running transformation as the first projects. And sometimes because the business sponsors don't have clarity and can't see a tangible outcome, so they back off. So the learning has been that the first project definitely should be simple. It should be easily understandable to all the stakeholders, and it should be time bound. Let's assume 8 to 12 weeks, the first one at least. And the technology that we choose, the platform that we choose, the system architecture that we build should be with some proven results, so that it can have a strong foundation for the future projects to come. So yeah, that's what has been our experience.
Okay, Mike. Before we move to this result thing, because I think you have some elements on ROI, I have a participant who asked a question that I want to address now, since it's the subject, right? It's the person is asking about sponsorship, and I think what he or she means is, how do you address this? It's not just like a little project here, but how do you make sure there is a sponsorship? I think you addressed this a bit with the management committee or something, but maybe if you want to dig in a bit on this sponsorship importance.
Sure. By sponsorship, it doesn't only need to be a leader, or we talk about CIO. CIO could be a strategic sponsor, but he's going to delegate also the project to their team. So by sponsorship, I believe it's a commitment by key members of different teams. Okay, so that means that it's not only a silo. If we look at exactly, if we know credit approvals, it's not only one sponsor within the finance department and one developer or one sponsor within this IT team. It has to be a key member. Of course, there's always what we call the internal client, the internal customers serving the process that you want to fix. So you need to have that commitment through every members and also through the CIO. The CIO has to be engaged in keeping informed the steering committee of where they are, and to back to Kankana was saying, on a reasonable timeline, especially now. We cannot say we are going to start a digital transformation project or process automation project if you are not comfortable in being able to commit on a timeline, and a short timeline where you can deliver results. And the perfect example is the first use case. It can be considered as a pilot in the company, in being able, if that pilot is successful, to be able to expand. And when the value is understood, and we have an insurance customer in California that has experienced that, when the value is perceived within one department and visible with the top line management, then it becomes a platform in an enterprise project where you can have iterative projects on a longer period of time.
Yeah, and really the important is, and Bonita offers this capacity of continuous improvement, right? So you start with a first minimal viable product, if I can say, and business can then give feedback, and then you can iterate. And as you said, Rob, it's always building on. It's not failing. It's really building each time another layer to more and more complexity towards the full business requirements. And what we see is that sometimes even you can address most of the business requirement quite quickly because the platform way of working, collaboration between IT and business, makes it possible for the project to move quite fast, in fact. So Mike, back to what Kankana was saying about showing proven results. I think the important thing is really KPIs and return on investment, right?
Exactly. KPIs is a buzzword that we hear a lot, but I don't believe it's used enough in the organizations. And back to process automation. A KPI that Rob explained is, how do you reduce an approval from 24 hours to 1 hour. So to be able to measure KPIs and before jumping into a project is, of course, what are our pains today? What time and what effort does that require? So time for an approval, time to build and implement as well from the technology stack. So this is where also you hear a lot about low code technologies that bring the best of coding skills and non-coding skills, and also bringing business and IT people and collaborating efficiently together. And to give a timeline as well to say 3 months, 6 months later, what is that result? What would be even at the start of the project, what would be the ideal KPI and result to say and look in the future to say we have achieved it or we have not achieved it for a certain number of reasons?
Yeah. Okay.
May I just add to that, Carol?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think the key thing is that we encourage that you get buy-in in line management. Let the line managers create the KPIs, right? So again, business strategy is enabled by technology. We have found that simply, technology-driven solutioneering isn't as powerful in buy-in as if you create a cross-functional team with some of the superstars who really understand the process and their functions and are incorporated with the dev teams in order to really provide real world, if you will, feedback, and that they're buying into what is being done and want to embrace it and are excited about the things that happen. That's one of the ways to get tremendous success, is that they're, in terms of sponsorship, it's not just a CIO, but if it's a marketing process, the VP of marketing, if it's a service process, that it's the director of services, that there is a direct line and there's two heroes from both the tech side and the business side who are really working together to deliver.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I think we are now going to conclude this panel and then open for questions. So Kankana, maybe last elements you want to address?
Yeah, sure. So we are at a very interesting inflection point, both for business and technology now. So when we return back post-COVID, right, the shift back will never happen. Rather, we are going to operate in a new way of doing things. And the impact of COVID on business has taught us many lessons by exposing the operational shortcomings, by the importance of disaster recovery readiness for businesses. It has also given us a push to think differently. For example, to include touch me not kind of digital interactions, the usage of bots and voice queries for business processes. So these are the things that we would carry on. We definitely need to make our processes efficient. We need to provide customer delight, and that will actually push businesses to think technology as the problem solver, right? So, and that's where the acceleration is going to happen. Now, choosing the right platform, choosing the right technology partner, and choosing the right projects would be very critical for businesses so that they can be lean, they can be intelligent, and they can be resilient for any future disruptions.
Thank you, Kankana. Rob?
Yeah, let me just give a little vision of 2021. I'm going to make a risk, right? And that is the distributed workforce is here to stay. There's supposed to be black swan events. We will see another black swan event happening. The military has an acronym called VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, change, and ambiguity. We will continue to stay in this mode for a while. So let me add those thoughts, right? First of all, there's a lot of excess capital in the system. And once that begins to work out through the processes, we're going to see banks faced with two kinds of problems. One, loan approvals, but also auditing loans. workouts and things that as they audit the viability of their loans are going to actually become very large in 2021. Second, we know online competition is heating up. How are you digitally interacting with your customers? There's a clear preference for people to interact with you electronically on the web, and it's much, much more effective. How are you moving into that, and are you using it as a competitive advantage? I talked about brand promise. Maintaining your brand promise is really important in maintaining relationships. So let me give you a quick example, not my client, but I think a great example is Walmart in the midst of this COVID crisis really stepped up on multiple ways, both in their stores, but they were able to continue to deliver online in one day. Amazon began because of demand falling behind on that brand promise. I can promise you as a Prime member. And the last one is onshoring and nearshoring. As we work through this process, this is going to dominate supply chain for the next 3 or more years as we work through this. So only by preparing your frontline processes are you going to be prepared to tackle these big processes that will force us to rethink all of these areas in 2021.
Okay, and Mike, a little wrap up of everything, and then we'll open for questions. So just a reminder, if you want to ask a question, use your question panel, and I'll take them just after Mike's conclusion.
Thank you, Carol. So for me, back to the intro, I want to highlight that it's a matter of survival. The COVID has only accentuated the number of broken, if not badly automated processes in our companies today. So now is the time to act and anticipate things that you can already deliver and improve as soon as Q1 2021. And it has a real impact on the satisfaction of the employees. Of course, being customer oriented, like Rob said, keeping the brand there and strong, but keeping your employees happy, especially the way that we've all lived that period of COVID has been very impactful at a personal level and at an employee level in being able then to contribute at a company. So the technology is key. Ideally, finding a low-code technology that's going to be quicker, cost-effective, and really focus on, again, how quickly can you make changes and have a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery approach, and that will really help you have a sustainable strategy forward.
Okay, so let's open for question. About here, so RPA and BPM and AI seems like the hyper automation is only accessible to Fortune 500 companies. What about smaller companies with smaller IT teams? Who wants to answer this?
I will.
Yeah,
especially
okay, Rob.
Since I brought up hyper automation. So one of our lead team members, Dr. Kai Winkler, authored a paper on hyper automation, and we have found that it can be implemented in steps by combining the understanding of your decision-making process. The truth is that the cost of these systems has come down immensely, and it's really about working through an iterative process to make things speedy. Speed and computing power is cheap now. So collecting data is actually the most important piece of that process for you to do a hyper automation process. It's not the expense of it, it's actually upfront data analytics.
Okay. I have another question about the cloud. How do you see the cloud value into this automation landscape?
Yeah, I'll take this question.
Yeah, Mike, let's go ahead.
An example in the automation space that we see as well is the approach of PaaS offering, platform as a service, where vendors such as Bonitasoft, but other vendors as well, and not only in automation, will host, manage, maintain, scale, and ensure the overall availability of the infrastructure and the platform for their customers. So that means that you as a customer can focus only in your business outlines and business projects, of course involving IT developers in delivering the projects, but without the hustle of managing, maintaining all the cloud infrastructure, and overall, not only that, but the maintenance and the scalability. I believe performance is one of the steps where it's going to explode even more with that explosion of outside of the office interactions. So being able also in choosing the right vendor who can offer you that guarantee that if you have millions of transactions or millions of instances or peaks within a weekend or within an hour, looking at Christmas for a lot of retailers or Amazon Prime Day last week, this is where a vendor and the right technology partner can help you as well.
Okay. Another question is, can these solutions, and I think the person means BPM RPA, work together with already established platform such as SAP or legacy applications? Who takes that question?
I can address it as well.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, since
Okay.
we do BPM at Bonita, yes. So BPM does not intend to replace RPA and vice versa. They complement with one another. Again, RPA automates certain pieces of a process which replace purely the manual tasks.
Click. Yeah.
Click on the mouse.
Yeah.
Typically
Yeah.
the bot is the mouse.
Yeah.
BPM combines human and IT interactions together and providing that overall visibility. And when you look at SAP, you look at Salesforce, these are all also, I'm not going to say siloed, but they are applications that serve purposes. So RPA and BPM will integrate with those systems, will not replace them. And a perfect example with SAP that we've seen as well is SAP does not have natively that workflow capabilities and does not offer to govern and automate what is outside of those applications. So this is where the intelligence with BPM and RPA is going to come into place.
Well, let me quickly add, right?
Yeah.
BPM, I like to think about as really the lines between the squares on your process diagram, right? So it's about moving information across from your ERP to wherever it needs to go. I talked about, for example, e-commerce. Better descriptions, better information is about the merging of data. And that is BPM, because you're looking at, as Michael said, siloed pieces of information and bringing it forward in a process that's displayed better.
Okay, I have another question here. What is the difficulty of implementation from a programmer's point of view?
Good question.
Low code. I'll add to Michael's statement, right? If you look at a low code solution, right, like Bonita, what you get is a couple of benefits, right? First, it's faster. Speed counts in being able to get solutions out the door. And secondly, it's not intimidating to a new team, and it's not intimidating, right, for line people to be able to interact with a dev. So from a programmer's perspective, right, you've got a lot of different projects on your plate. You've got priorities, and being able to move quickly and iteratively is really important. And that's why I think low code, pass-based solutions are the right solution for most customers.
Yeah,
Right,
and with, oh, go ahead, Kankana, sorry.
Yeah, so to add to that, right? So since we definitely augment services and provide solutions, right? So low code platforms obviously reduce the timeline to deliver, which is one of the most important KPIs for any business. And the other thing is you can focus on the business process, because business knowledge is very, very important in order to deliver the solution, and that's what matters. So it's not only about technology anymore. First of all, nowadays, developers are becoming full stack, and you're really not tied up to a particular technology. Technology is changing so fast. So this low-code platform allows you to focus more on business and also to quickly learn new technologies and to use cloud, right? Use microservices, these kind of things with much more ease. So I believe a developer's life is much easier now with these kind of platforms coming up, and the one who is getting most advantage out of it is the customers of every business. So it's a great place to be in.
And to add to this, I mean, the philosophy into the Bonita platform, for example, is that business and developers have different places in the system where each of them, depending on their skills, are going to add. So, for example, if I take an example, the UI, everything that is extensibility will be done by a developer within SDK and coding. And of course, you need coding skills for this. But then everything that is more low-code drag and drop type of UI building can be done by people who understand the final need and what type of forms needs to be designed or what type of page needs to be designed. And it's a collaboration between the coder and the visual programmer, as we call them. So there is place for coding and extensibility with a platform and an open source platform like Bonita, but there is also space for visual programmers to really basically add their own skills to the project and make it a full success. Okay, so I think that was the last question in my list. So unless there is another one that pops up, I think we will be done for today. Yes, no more questions. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob, Kankana, and Mike, for your time today and for all your good advice. And I wish we had more time to speak about more details, but we will surely have other events of the same nature. I hope everybody found this interesting, and I thank you for your time, and I wish you a very pleasant day or a pleasant evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Rob,
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.